Hi, I'm Kaylee, and today I'm going to be covering the unsolved murder of Elizabeth Short, aka the Black Dahlia. I just want to say thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoy true crime, I highly suggest subscribing to my channel, and if you enjoy this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. This case involves a lot of information, and because of that, I'm going to have to break it up into parts, so this is just part one, and part two I will post tomorrow. So with that in mind, let's get into it. All right, so Elizabeth Short was born on July 29th, 1924, in the Hyde Park section of Boston, Massachusetts. She was the third of five daughters of Cleo and Phoebe May Short. And it was around 1927 that Phoebe and Cleo relocated to Portland, Maine before they settled in Medford, Massachusetts. And it was here that Elizabeth and her siblings grew up. This is where she made her friends, and they really became a part of the community. Her father built miniature golf courses until the 1929 stock market crash, when he lost pretty much all of his savings and became just really depressed, which was really common at that time because so many people were losing everything. And because of this, in 1930, his car was found abandoned on the Charleston Bridge, and it was assumed that he had committed suicide by jumping into the Charles River. So when the police showed up at the door and informed his wife and his daughters that, he had passed, obviously they were heartbroken. And even worse, she has five children now that she has to take care of all on her own. So heartbroken, but, she had to step up. And so she did. She became a bookkeeper to support them. Money was definitely tight, but she made it work, and she made sure all her kids had food and clothes and a place to sleep. A little known fact about Elizabeth is she was actually suffered from bronchitis and had severe asthma attacks. And actually, she underwent lung surgery at age 15. And after which, doctors actually told her, she needed to relocate to milder climates during the winter months to prevent respiratory problems. And so she did. A lot of times during the winters, because the winters are really harsh in Massachusetts, she would actually go and spend time in Miami, Florida with family and friends. And she really enjoyed her time there. I think it was kind of like a nice getaway too. And it helped, with her breathing problems. During the next 3 years, she lived in Florida during the winter months and spent the rest of the year in Medford with her mother and sisters. And actually, in her sophomore year, Short ended up dropping out of Medford High School. But from everything that I've read, the people who went to school with her and grew up with her said she was very kind and had like a warm energy. And also, as far as the way she looked, they said she was a very beautiful girl. Obviously, there's lots of pretty girls out there, lots of pretty faces, but they all said that there was something unique about Elizabeth. She had just like a certain aura. She always made sure to play up her features. They said you would never see her without her makeup on, without her red lipstick. Her hair was always perfectly curled. She had porcelain skin, jet black hair, and her friend said that if she was low on money and was making some money, she would go and spend it on clothes. She would just go without food because she just always loved to dress up and look her best. And one of her favorite things to do was wear black clothing, actually, and she loved form-fitting clothes. I found one interesting article that said one of her friends said she was actually surprised that Elizabeth didn't cause more car wrecks when she walked across the street. Apparently, there was just this unique way she walked, I guess a little sway in her hip or something, that everyone noticed. So that's pretty cool. That you must have something special going on if that many people, even the way you walk, people remember. I don't know. That's pretty cool. Okay, so now it's 1942, and Elizabeth's mother actually ended up receiving a letter from Elizabeth's father basically apologizing and admitting that he had faked his death, which is really messed up. And so he was just apologizing for abandoning her and their kids and wanting to return, basically. But she was like, no, we've been fine without you, we're do fine without you, and just basically told him, go to hell. But Elizabeth, now 18, actually decided she was going to relocate to Vallejo, California, where her father was living, whom she had not seen since she was 6 years old, and live with him. Now, it's believed that she decided this not because she really wanted to rebuild a relationship with her father, but mainly because she just wanted to escape her small town and, go and live in California. So she packed up her bags and moved there. At the time, he was working at the nearby Mare Island Naval Shipyard on San Francisco Bay. Much as soon as Elizabeth got there, they were already bickering. For one thing, there's a lot of tension between them because he literally abandoned his family, you know. She hasn't seen him since she was 6 years old. And also, apparently, he felt that she just wasn't really doing her part. I think he thought when she got there, she was going to, you know, because she was going to be staying there, was going to be cleaning up and taking care of the house and getting a job. But instead, he said she slept all day, she didn't clean up. And apparently, he wasn't really thrilled with the fact that she had a new date every night. He thought it was really improper of a lady, basically, is what he said to an interviewer. So he ended up eventually just kicking her out and giving her some money and telling her to just go home. But Elizabeth did not plan on going home. Instead, she actually ended up getting a job at an Air Force base. I believe it was called Camp Cook, which is now Vandenberg Air Force Base near Lompoc. And she lived with several friends. She was actually really popular there, and she was voted in a contest they had as Camp Cook Cutie. Apparently, all the guys really thought she was something. But apparently, very quickly, they realized that they referred to her as a tease because I guess they kind of realized she wasn't going to put out, and so they kind of lost interest. And Elizabeth actually ended up leaving that place of work soon in 1943 because apparently there had been allegations that she had been assaulted by an Army Air Force sergeant. So she ended up leaving and moved to Santa Barbara in 1943, where she was actually arrested on September 23rd, 1943 for underage drinking at a bar. Apparently she'd met some people and I guess they'd gone to the bar and I guess were acting really rowdy, and the police had showed up and they realized when, you know, they had to ID her that she was not of age, and so she was arrested, and you can actually see her mugshot. Actually, pretty good mugshot. She still looks really good, honestly. But the police apparently felt bad for her and just said, hey, you know, here's some money, and gave her a bus ticket and told her just to head back to Medford. So they sent her back to Medford, but she returned instead to Florida, and she just stayed in Florida and just made occasional visits back home. She did not really want to move back home. I think she wanted to kind of make a life for herself and kind of figure out on her own and make her own path. So while in Florida, she actually met Major Matthew Michael Gordon Jr., a decorated Army Air Force officer at the 2nd Air Force Commando Group. He was training for the deployment at the time to the China Boomer India Theater of Operations of World War II. And apparently Elizabeth was really smitten with him. According to friends and family, Elizabeth always kind of had a thing for soldiers. It didn't matter what branch. She just loved soldiers. She thought they were very handsome, and I think she really liked the uniform. And I think they kind of, for her, represented stability, and yeah, she just really liked it. So she was smitten with this guy, and she had written to friends saying that he had written to her to propose marriage while he was recovering from injuries after a plane crash in India. So she was super excited. She obviously had said yes, and, you know, was just really excited to be a young bride and to, you know, finally have some stability in her life. Sadly, this would not happen for Elizabeth because soon after that, he actually died in a crash on August 10th, 1945, less than a week before the surrender of Japan, which ended the war. This absolutely devastated Elizabeth, and she was never the same afterwards. And she even actually continued to write his mother and just kind of, you know, tried to continue keeping his memory alive and kept all the letters he'd written her. But, you know, life goes on, and Elizabeth is still a very pretty girl, so she had to just kind of move on, and she wasn't going to let this define her life. So she ended up relocating to Los Angeles in July 1946, and there she actually reconnected with an old flame, Army Air Force Lieutenant Joseph Gordon Fickling, whom she had met when she was staying in Florida as a teen. And, you know, and they had kind of, I don't know if they'd ever been like an item, but they had, I guess, become close. So anyways, they kind of reconnected, and according to him, it just never seemed to work with them. They always were at each other's head, fighting all the time. He admits that he was kind of possessive and didn't really like the attention she got from other men and thought she could have been less flirty. And because of this, their relationship ended up just fizzling out. I think it was a mutual thing. They just decided it wasn't going to work between them and went their separate ways. But Elizabeth actually decided to still stay in California, and after this, she just relocated. She would kind of go from place to place. She didn't really have like a steady income coming in, so she would either stay on friends' couches or, would just stay somewhere for a month and then leave when the rent was due. She worked as a waitress actually and would just work odd jobs. And it was said that she was always still out on many dates with men. She did this thing called dating for dinner, which is where it was very common back then. So if you didn't really have money for a meal and you were a pretty female, you could basically just be a guy's escort, going on a date with him. Didn't have to lead to anything sexual, just companionship basically. And it was a way to make sure you had food, so if you're a starving girl living in LA, that was a good option back then. And Elizabeth definitely did that. She also had aspirations to be an actress, but she realized soon as she got to LA that that's, something so many other young, beautiful women are trying to do, and found it harder than she thought. But she still continued to try. She seemed to have a lot of confidence, even though, this is like 1 in a million people actually are able to make it. She really felt like she had something special, and, a lot of people apparently did too. She was definitely stood out, and she definitely got a lot of attention from men, and people noticed her. And so now she's in California, and this is where I'm going to end it. In part 2 tomorrow, we're going to go into more about what happens now when she's living in California and who she meets. This is just kind of the beginning, y'all getting to know Elizabeth. In part 2 tomorrow, like I said, I will go into more in depth of what happens. But now, as of now, she's in California, living life. She just separated from Joseph, so we'll see how that goes.